Hi everyone, and welcome to this review of the Takara Tomy Masterpiece MP-52 Starscream version 2. And that was a bit of a mouthful. This is my first video in some time, so I'm probably a little bit rusty, so please forgive me. And this is going to be more of an unboxing and reaction video, because I literally just got this delivered today and I haven't even opened the packaging yet, so I know as much about it as you guys do. We're going to go through this journey together, and I'm going to take you through my thoughts live as they come to me. So this should be interesting. I don't think I've ever done this before, so yeah. Anyway, I won't ramble on too much at this portion of the video. I'll do that plenty as we go on, as regular visitors to my channel will know. So yeah, buckle up, and I'll be back in a second with my initial thoughts. So here we are, I'm back with a fresh out of the box figure. It's obviously in its alt mode, that's how it comes packaged. And yeah, my initial impressions are really favourable actually. I think it looks fantastic. I've obviously extended the landing gear, which is something that isn't done out of the box, just to give it a little bit of stability on the desk. But oh, when it rolls, I'll say that's something the MakeToys version doesn't do. But yeah, overall, really love the jet mode. It's so evocative of the Toon model. It does have obviously a lot more detailing than possibly the Toon model would have. Obviously that was quite a flat thing, as cartoons obviously are. But this really does have enough detailing to make it look something a little bit more real world without spoiling that whole Toon aesthetic. I think in pictures it's possibly slightly too dark, but when you look at it in hand, it's not. Certainly the animation model and early episodes of the Transformers series, Starscream was much darker than he appeared later on. Sometimes he appeared really light grey, almost white, but early on he was a quite dark grey, and this really does look the part. Elsewhere, I mean, I think there are obviously some complaints that I've seen about it looking very robot-y in alt mode, and yes, when you look at it from underneath, it is very clearly a robot folded up into a jet, but this whole section here is actually Toon accurate when you look at the model, so I think they've done a good job of incorporating that into the transformation sequence. I mean, when you really pay close attention, like things like this, it's difficult, I don't know if you can see, but he's got the 20mm Vulcan cannon there molded in, which is a really nice touch. And I like the fact he's got the tampos on both sides of the wings, and they're in their cartoon accurate alignment. Yeah, honestly, I think maybe in some iterations he would have had the deco on the wings. The F-15 did have those stripes in some iterations, but in a lot of versions he didn't. I like the fact he doesn't have the blue nose cone. That's very Toon accurate, although in some episodes he did, but obviously most he didn't. I'm really struggling to find fault with how it looks. I can nitpick it all day, I'm sure, but really when you look at it like this, it's incredibly impressive. I love the F-15 model anyway, the F-15 design. It's a really fantastic looking jet, and this really does the part. Let's push that a little bit down there. It's obviously hanging out from the box, but yeah, there have been some fairly widely reported issues with this in terms of QC problems, mostly around cracking on the hinges. And I will be completely honest with you, I do have that, not so much on the left. I don't think you'll be able to see this, but on the left hand side all looks good. On the right hand side I do have an incredibly tiny, and I really don't think you'll be able to see this, but there's an incredibly tiny crack there. I think it's probably where the rivet has gone in there, and it's just, well, I don't know, tolerances are off or whatever it is. It is a problem, and it's obviously a problem that affects a lot of them, so it is a design issue or a factory assembly issue. I'm hoping it won't be a massive problem for me because I'm only going to transform it once, so fingers crossed. Just little things though, like the detail on this, the F-15 has slightly different tail fin tips, and they're replicated here, which is something that no other model has done to my, well, certainly third-party models have done to my knowledge. And yeah, I'm really, honestly, I'm looking at it now and it looks fantastic. I'm really struggling to find any fault with it that isn't just me nitpicking. I mean, yes, this, obviously that's unsightly, that's obviously there for a reason. But, you know, I haven't even removed, as you can see, it's so out of the packaging fresh that I haven't even removed the cellophane yet. But yeah, like looking at it, it's amazingly tune accurate. It looks fantastic, but it remains that real world aesthetic as well. So I'm all about this jet mode. It looks amazing. Again, negatives, slight cracks on these hinges here. The air intakes are a bit loose. If you knock them, they do come down. They do lock in slightly, but they do come down. But then again, how much are you hitting that, honestly? Like, you shouldn't be hitting that during normal operation. The landing gear doesn't have all that much clearance when you look at it. It's pretty much parallel to this grey piece here, but it does the job. It rolls, which is something the third party doesn't do. So I can't really fault it in that respect. Anyway, give me a second, and what we'll do is we'll come back with some of the features, the gimmicks that this has. I just want to, obviously, as I said, this is really just honestly my unboxing. I haven't touched this before, so this is the first reaction, and I haven't actually taken anything else out of the box so far. So give me a chance, and I'll be back with all of the things that all the accoutrements for jet mode. Okay, so we're back with the jet mode accessories, and there aren't that many, it has to be said. They're only a handful. They are here. First up, we have more, well, blast effects, but in this case, they're actually more engine effects. So these would plug into the engines. And I probably need to reorient those after I've done it because it pops them in a bit, but that just gives it a little bit of a little bit of life. If you have that on the display stand, which it does come with, I'll mention that in a second. But yes, you can actually orient these thrusters a little bit. You can move them up, down, left and right, and yeah, I'm not a huge fan of blast effects, it has to be said. I think they can add certain life to pictures, but really I wouldn't use them in my my everyday display. But they're there and they look fine for what they are. You know, they're obviously in the Decepticon purple, which is what you come to expect. Moving on, we come to, I've heard a lot of reviewers calling these null rays, or null ray blasters, or whatever. Even the Takara Hasbro literature calls them null rays. They're not. Starscream has a weapon called a null ray, but he also has cluster bombs. And in jet mode, what these actually are drop tanks. Now, these can secure onto the wings by way of a tab here, and they secure perfectly fine, and they look perfectly great. And obviously you have them in this short configuration here. Now, they can also be attached via these things here, as part of what Takara have tried to implement for a lot of their figures since MP Hound, really. A seamless transformation whereby accessories integrate with the figure and can be transformed with the figure and folded away into the figure in alt mode or robot mode, whichever way it needs to be. I don't personally like that, and I'm not going to utilize it, and I'm not even going to show it because there are way more reviewers out there who will do a better job of this than me, I'm sure. but you can actually configure this so that it attaches to these drop tanks, and it's completely integrated. So when you perform the transformation, you can detach this piece and they will remain attached to that, and then you can reconfigure them and then reattach them to the... I don't care. I mean, I don't mind a little bit of... I don't even want to call it parts forming. It's not. It's just configuration as you transform. And I think the jet mode looks cleaner without this attachment. You know, having this whole strut thing attached to that just doesn't look great to me. But yeah, obviously these pieces being transformable, they have a lot more panel lines and seams and things, and maybe that's a detractor for some people. A little bit of a detractor for me, actually, if I'm honest. But really, when looking at the overall figure, it's not a massive issue. I mean, it's just a minor thing. It still gets the impression across. The other thing that you can do in jet mode is from that one episode when that one thing happened. And I haven't done this yet, actually. I'll show it off before I attach it. There's this G1 Megatron alt mode. It looks really good. I don't know if you can see this again. My lighting probably not being the best. There is a Decepticon faction symbol on this. It's a teeny tiny one, and it's a cartoon accurate one. It's a slightly different mold than ones we've had previously, and it does extend for robot mode because of the grip. But when you're attaching it for alt mode, I believe it goes into this slot here, and then you can do that one thing that he did in that one episode. You know, I'm not even going to try and emulate the G1. Well, I will. It's awful, I know. But anyway, he does that one thing when he does that laser blast thing with Megatron. So yeah, as far as alt mode stuff goes, he has a few options, and it looks good. But yeah, there are obviously better things to come with robot mode. So my initial thoughts on the jet mode are that it's really competent. Honestly, it does look really good. I love the colour. Much darker than most figures I've seen, or most Masterpiece and third-party representations. Far more evocative of the original G1 toy, in fact, which was dark, and is dark. I still have it. It's very dark. I like the plain deco in terms of the flat colours. I would have liked even less panel detailing, but I'm weird like that. But I think this strikes a good balance between those who enjoy the old toy style, the older MP10 aesthetic, and those who are really in on the toon style. What I'm going to do now, prior to bringing out the flight stand, which I'll hopefully show off at some point, I'm going to just tidy this up a bit, maybe remove this stuff, and then bring in the MakeToys Meteor for comparison. So just give me a second and I'll be right back. So I've removed all the gimmicky bits, and we're back here now just with the plain alt modes. And obviously on the right hand side we have the new official MP-52 Starscream. On the left hand side we have MakeToys Meteor. Now I bought this mould, I'm trying to remember now, probably 2018 I think. Yeah, it would have been 2018 because I was in my last job, and I paid 90 quid for it, and at the time I thought it was the bees. Honestly, when you compare this to the older MP-03 and MP-11 moulds, it destroys them. And I've been very, very happy with it for a long time. Then, of course, as often happens, things move on. Someone says, I'm going to make a more toon-accurate mould. And that's when you get MP-52. And to be honest with you, in alt mode, in jet mode, I do struggle to choose between them. They both look fantastic. Obviously, this is a much lighter figure in terms of the deco. Probably what a lot of people would associate with Starscream. They would see him as being more this light grey. Obviously, it has all of the things you would expect. It has the, albeit incorrect, decals on the stabilizers here. It has the stripes on the wings. I've obviously applied my own faction symbols. It has this nice opaque canopy. It's a nice sort of golden colour. Landing gear, solid pieces. They don't rotate. so when you move it, it doesn't roll, it kind of slides along a table. These pieces don't move, so that's nice and solid. It has a very similar deco on the back with these dark pieces here, which are tune accurate, albeit not entirely sure they're in the right place. But everything really holds together well. I mean, it's got obviously got nice drop tanks here. Doesn't have the nice Vulcan gun integrated. I think it's cleaner underneath. I mean, still very clearly a rolled up robot or a fold up robot, but I think it looks cleaner than MP-52 underneath. The big problem with this in the jet mode is that these, I guess these, what were these, tail fins maybe? I don't know. I don't know if these are stabilizers, tail fins, whatever they are. Please correct me in the comments, you know, aerospace experts. But they are very, they're very wobbly. These also were always an issue. They never stood upright or locked in, and they also have this horrible hinge in the middle of them. But you know, you can get them into a kind of an okay position. They kind of sit flush there, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, it looks good. It's not a bad looking alt mode. It's a really nice looking F-15 alt mode, and honestly really evocative of the character. When I compare it to the new MP-52, what I really see initially are that there are far more seams and I guess, I mean, greeblies isn't the right word to use a Star Wars phrase, but there are definitely more panel lines on this than there are on the MakeToys version. But what I do like is that these tail fins and stabilizers don't move in the way that they do on the third party. I like the fact you can roll. I like the fact it is more tune accurate, not only in colour but also proportion. The nose cone especially is more tune accurate. I think the placement of these dark pieces is probably, maybe arguably more accurate. I don't know. I haven't actually got an animation frame to hand, but what I would say is that when it comes to alt mode, they're pretty evenly matched. I would probably give the nod to this in terms of tune accuracy, but if I'm just looking at, wow, that's a cool looking F-15 jet repro, might even give it to this because it does look the part. It looks really nice indeed. Again, I'm torn. I'm not going to really, I don't want to, like, you know, nail my colours to the mast or anything. I think both look good, but on balance, this is probably the more satisfying looking real world representation, and this is definitely more tune accurate. And given that I'm a tune guy, I'm probably going to like this more. Not probably, I am going to like this more. I do like this more. I'm going to come out and say it. I do like this more. This is far heftier though, I will say that. This feels like a more expensive toy, even though this was £90 and this was £215. Let that sink in. 90, 215, and yet this feels far more substantive than this. This really doesn't, this feels kind of cheap actually. Not as cheap as some of Takara Hasbro's recent figures, but definitely not worth the 215 quid, whereas this does feel quite hefty. So alt mode, I think probably a tie on balance. You know, there are pros and cons on both sides. As a tune guy, I'm going to go for this all day long, but trying to be relatively objective, which I never am, they're on a par. So I think if you've got this guy, you're not going to really see much of a benefit with MP-52 if your primary concern is the alt mode, unless you really love the colour. But we'll get into why I think MP-52 is the clear winner overall in the next section of the review. So if you give me just a short while to clean it up. As usual, I'm not going to do the transformation on camera. That's not what this channel is about. There are plenty of people who are far better at this than me, MGO, well, mainly MGO, and a few Japanese reviewers, Chinese reviewers, whatever, who do really great transformation videos. Follow them if you want to see it. I'm not about that. I will show you the before and after, that is it. But yeah, give me a second, well, a second in your time, probably about an hour or two in mine, and I'll be back with the bot mode comparison. Okay, here we are back with the flight stand, and yeah, it's a stand that emulates flight. I don't really know what else to say about it. It works well enough. You have this little clear plastic piece here, which is popped out already. It doesn't connect very well, I will say that. But it does the job. It actually rotates, sorry, not rotates, but angles, so you can move him like this, side to side, and back and forth, although it is kind of loose. I could probably tighten that screw. Obviously it moves here on this this joint, so you can move it down. You can get it into all sorts of dynamic poses if you want him diving or whatever. You can kind of do it, although as I've said, it's popped out, so it's not working quite as well as it could do. I'll move it slightly more in frame there. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know people like them. I'm not a big fan of flight stands or any kind of thing like that, because I primarily display in bot mode. So yeah, not really a massive thing for me, but it's there if you want it. And yeah, again, when you look at the difference between this and the forthcoming Plus versions of Thundercracker and Skywarp, in terms of pricing, I'm sure we've paid for this, which I don't know if it comes with the Plus versions, and a few other things that come with it. So again, I think there are plenty of third-party options available for stuff like this, so I'd rather that if you wanted a flight stand, you just bought one or two or whatever you wanted that were compatible, that fit your figures, rather than having to pay inflated prices for things that you will never use, which I never will. But that's just me. It's there. If you like it, use it. All power to you. Okay, and here we are back with the look at the bot mode. And yeah, I think first off, initial impressions are that it's even better than the alt mode. I mean, that's a damn fine looking masterpiece figure, if I do say so myself. Yeah, I mean, I really have kind of been hard on Takara for the last few releases, or certainly the ones I've purchased anyway, and I think rightfully so as well. But this really is a step up from what they've released, you know, in terms of things like MP-45 and 47, and even 44 actually to a degree. I think, you know, this I had issues with QC with 44. I was lucky with 45 and 47 that I didn't have any particularly egregious problems. You know, the Hound was obviously notoriously brittle for some people, but I think perhaps because I just transformed it once and put it on a shelf, I didn't encounter those issues. But it did feel cheap and plasticky. This does feel, although not as solid as some figures and some third-party figures particularly, it does feel a step up in terms of plastic quality. And yeah, I freaking love this guy. Look at it's got bags of personality. You can just see already, like, you know, the transformation as well. I will say, I was expecting the worst. I kind of said it would take me a particularly long time to do it. It actually wasn't all that bad. There were a couple of tricky bits, which I'll sort of point out as we take a look at the model. But honestly, I was able to do it pretty easily. Having watched a few videos in the run-up to this, I didn't actually refer to the instructions once. It was all intuitive. I was able to find everything, locate the pieces together pretty easily. There were, as I say, a couple of tricky bits, but overall, yeah, very, very nice indeed, and much less of a headache than things like MP-44 and 47, and yeah, honestly, much less so than a lot of third parties too. So yeah, kudos to Takara for engineering a figure that was actually fun and intuitive to transform. You know, credit where it's due. I've bashed them a lot, but this was actually good. When we take a look at the figure, I'm just going to run through a couple of things. First and foremost, though, I do want to mention that I did neglect to highlight a function of the jet mode, which I should have done, and that is the radar dish in the nose cone. It just slipped my mind completely. I didn't know it was there, but anyway, this Starscream has a nice ab crunch, which is actually it's quite neat in that it's I don't know if you can make it out there, but there's a tab, a connecting tab, and when the ab crunch is engaged, that stays connected, and it's on a double hinge there, and you can possibly see in there, just in there, that is the whole fuselage of the jet folded up, and that is the radar dish. So it's there, it was on the older mould, and it is still there on this mould, and apologies for not showing it off. But I mean, obviously there I've just shown some of the articulation in the form of the ab crunch. But yeah, this thing's got everything you'd expect from a modern masterpiece figure. It has ratcheted legs forward and back, which are pretty tight ratchets, pretty stiff, nice satisfying clicky sound there. The knee ratchets are a lot softer, but you know, they do the job. It does have quite a decent amount of foot articulation, but a lot of people have said this is quite loose, and yeah, it is fairly loose on mine as well. You can see that's not going to support a huge amount of weight like that. But when you've got these heels, the feet actually, they attach to the heels, so they're all one unit and they move. And it does, as you saw the pose I had it in, it does hold a pose pretty well. He's got obviously the older style hip skirts where they're not integrated, or it's, you know, they don't automatically retract when you move the legs, but you know, I don't mind that too much. It obviously has again that they feel like, I don't know, are they ratchet or, yeah, they are kind of ratcheted. I thought they were friction, but no, they are ratcheted hips, and they go out to like about that far. Obviously he's limited in how far his legs can go back because of the backpack, so when it's down you can't go back as far, but if you've got the ab crunch engaged, you can get a decent range of motion there. It's obviously got a thigh swivel as well, although that doesn't go all that far because it's limited by the crotch piece there. But still, for most poses you're going to put him in, he's got all the range of motion you'll need, and yeah, he looks pretty good when you stand him here like that. In terms of the upper body, I mean, there is no, I think we all knew ahead of time that there was no waist rotation. There is obviously the ab crunch, but not rotation. What we didn't, you know, I didn't really think that was going to be a problem. A waist rotation can be useful, but it's not the be-all end-all, and I'm not missing it. You can get him into enough dynamic poses without it, you know, especially because of the way the rest of the body can be manipulated. Anyway, the arms, again, as you can see, nice range of motion, soft ratchets, but they're going to hold a pose. It's got a nice deep elbow bend there, not quite double jointed, but it's enough. You can also use the transformation joint to get you know, a nice butterfly, so you can bring the fist across the chest, and it does kind of show a little bit, you know, you're cheating it, but obviously from some angles, you know, you can do it where like you minimize the visibility of that piece, so it doesn't look too bad. The guns, which I guess now are in the null ray configuration, they're obviously on a strut here, and they can be moved, and you can have them at different heights, different elevations. They should be on the lower one though, in order for it to be tune accurate. But again, that's nice, and obviously they'll spin around, etc. So you can change the orientation. And as I said, they're all one piece, so you basically flip all of this around to change the drop tanks into the null rays, which is pretty cute. Let's pop his shoulder back in. There we go. It's quite stiff. It has, as I say, quite a good range of motion because of that joint again there. The way it works, you can bring it up quite high. It does obviously reveal that piece sticking out there, and that piece is a different colour because it's not painted. Most of this figure is painted, and it looks very good for it. And I'm quite lucky in that mine doesn't have any really major paint defects as far as I can tell so far. Let's have a look at what else we've got on display here. Hands, you have individually articulated fingers, so you can get a nice sort of grip on that. What is a bit odd is that the thumb is it's very delicate, the thumb, it feels, but it's not on a ball, so it only goes up and down like this, which is a little bit disappointing actually, because it's not very natural. You'd normally have the thumb closer in like that, but it's kind of stuck at that angle there, which looks weird, but it's okay, it does the job. So I'm not going to get too bent out of shape about it. What else can we look at here? The head actually is one of the weirdest things. I mean, you can get quite a good range of motion, but it's on a very stiff ball joint, or at least mine is. So it can look back quite a long way, and it can look forward that much, but you can kind of cheat it by pulling it up like that. And if you can see that, you can pull it up so that he can look down quite a lot, but obviously that does reveal more of the neck, and he can obviously look back a lot, but obviously that's looking, that doesn't look great. But even so, he still has a good range of motion initially, and it is on a ball, so you can get a little bit of what I call the quizzical dog, where he's kind of looking at sort of a cockeyed angle, but it's quite stiff. I do feel a little bit like I'm going to break that off the ball joint, which worries me, which is why I'm probably not going to move it around too much in everyday use. What I also like as well is that the intakes here, they move different configurations from alt mode to robot mode. So one thing I've noticed with some of the third parties is that because they're straight, I can't actually do that because of the way it's, sorry, if you can see this, I can actually push that all the way down because of that, but ordinarily that bit would be horizontal, and so that would be angled back, but in the cartoon that's different. It changes so that these bits are flat and these bits are angled, and they've engineered that in. And I believe the older mold did that as well, but this just works really neatly. And yeah, the wings as well, you can kind of get a little bit of articulation on them. They do sort of move and bend a bit, but I wouldn't recommend it. It doesn't feel like it's going to be particularly wise to do that. A couple of other bits and pieces I want to show off on the figure. He does have his legendary boob bombs from that episode, and they look really nice. I guess these would be in alt mode, they would be cluster bombs perhaps. Starscream's weapons in his G1 bio were null rays and cluster bombs, and yeah, they look pretty good there. Also, one thing I forgot to point out or mention in the alt mode review, and I'll need to take this apart to show you. This all collapses in. There's quite a lot of detail inside the wings. All this sort of tech detail paneling and all that. I don't know whether these are supposed to be cluster bombs and that you could open the wings in flight and they would be the bombs that fall or whatever. But yeah, they look pretty nice in there. And then, as you can see, this all folds up again like that, and then you use this, and that just tabs in like that, he says, and locks in, and that keeps the whole wing assembly together. Now, obviously, the rear view is probably the most disappointing view of this figure because it's not toon accurate. In the toon, you should be able to see the red of his crotch piece like that, but it's all obviously obscured by this assembly here. And the backpack, when you look at the profile, it does jut out considerably further than it does in the toon. It's like a double layered backpack, but honestly I think for the engineering they've done, that's a pretty minimal sacrifice, and it's nowhere near as egregious as some of the backpacks. I think MP-44 looks a lot worse than that, and MP-45 just looks like a mess. Even though it's not huge, it just doesn't look nice because it's hollow and gappy, and yeah. Whereas this actually integrates pretty well, and yeah, I'm not as a toon purist, you'd think I'd hate it because it's not showing what you'd see or should see from the rear, but yeah, I think actually it looks pretty good. What else can we talk about? I think just a couple of things I mentioned from when I was transforming it. As I said, I was surprised by how easy it was, but one of the things I did struggle with actually was on this wing. For some reason, tabbing in was a lot harder than that one. That one went in straight away. That one, just trying to finagle these hinges to get it locked in was a bit more difficult than I had hoped it would be. What I really had the most trouble with though was these intakes, because sorry, the intakes, if I don't know if you can see again, they lock onto tiny little posts there, and in order to do so you have to have these collapsible hinges. You have to have them out. They are actually out, but I've seen a lot of reviewers making the mistake of pinching them closed and then having a nightmare putting these intakes on, and then the intakes aren't when they're up vertically, they're not vertically aligned properly. They're at an angle, and it puts stress on it. So yeah, the instructions don't tell you to close that. I think people just think, oh, it looks like it should collapse, so I'll collapse it. But no, that is designed to be left out like that. When it's like that, they do fit on, but that one popped on pretty easy and stayed. So when I move this, it doesn't move. This one I couldn't get to connect. So what I did is, the way I initially was trying to do it was I was trying to push it on like that and push down and get it to stick. As I say, that one worked, but this one didn't. So what I did in the end, I realised that actually that piece I could just stick my finger through and press on the actual bit that needs to tab in, rather than trying to leverage it with the die cast piece there. And then that one went on easy as pie. So that's a little tip there for anyone who gets the figure, or anyone who's got it and is having trouble getting those things to stick, because I've seen quite a few pictures and definitely a lot of video reviews so far. I've had the most trouble with these things, these intakes. So I think that's really all I wanted to say about articulation and the features that I missed earlier. I mean, again, I could go on all day about how great this figure looks. I mean, you know, you'll have seen the animation model up at the start of the video. As per usual, I usually put stills from the product, and then from the show, and then from the model. And the model is what we should really go by. Obviously, there were tons of animation errors in the Sumbo series, especially the ACOM episodes, where character models were incorrectly coloured and drawn at very random proportions and silly things like that. But with this, I think it really nails all the notes. As I say, the colour I think is spot on to like a lot of earlier appearances where he's a darker grey. And one of the other criticisms I've heard about this figure are that the head's too big, which is funny, because the criticism of the third-party figures is that the heads were too small. But honestly, it's proportionally not. I mean, I don't know if you've ever looked at a person, but people's heads are freaking big, you know, compared to the rest of our bodies. You know, we don't all walk around with like these little tiny, you know, peanut heads. We've got quite big heads, and proportionally his head is fine for the rest of his body, I think. And again, he's got those heroic proportions where the Toon drawings, the character models were always, you know, kind of the perspective was always looking up at them, so it elongated the legs and made them look, you know, that heroic type proportion. And this captured this. It may not be anatomically correct, but these are not humans; they are robots, so they don't have to be anatomically perfect to my mind, anyway. So I think this looks really, really good, really close, really evocative of the animation, and yeah, it's honestly just one of my, I think now probably one of my favourite Takara masterpieces. You know, if not my favourite, full stop. It really does look great. And I don't seem to have as many issues as a lot of people have had. Like, a lot of people have said these panels here don't clasp together properly, and mine aren't too bad. I mean, they're not 100%. There's a tiny, tiny gap on that one. But some people's have been like, you know, much bigger gaps. So I think I got away with that okay. The right hand one is much better. I think I actually just made that worse trying to make it better, but yeah, the other one, that clasped together no problem, and you don't really notice it anyway, to be honest. It's not like my KO MP-44 where the panel was just, you know, huge gaping gap between it and like, it wouldn't stay flush. I've got a bit of a loose hip skirt there, I've just noticed, but that's not the end of the world. You know, it's going to be down most of the time, so don't really care about that. As I said, don't seem to have any major blemishes on mine. Everything looks to be pretty solid. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with this. This is I've been lucky that I've got a pretty good one. I think not perfect, because as I said in the alt mode review, it has those cracks on the hinges here, but now that's all folded away, this guy probably won't be going from bot mode back into alt mode anyway, so I'm not totally worried about it. At this moment in time, what I want to do is just bring in a couple of other things, a couple of options. So obviously we have blast effects with the alt mode, and we've got the same sort of thing for the robot mode as well. So you have this long blast effect here. All of these will fit onto the null rays, so you have a long blast effect there. Oddly though, you don't get two the same, so you can't have two long blast effects shooting at the same time. But you know, these do look pretty cool. You can use whichever one you feel comfortable with, and also they fit the barrel of the small Megatron as well, so you can kind of do that. He will hold this Megatron. He has the usual slot in his hand, and that's why this extends. You have to get it's a bit tricky to get in, so I'm not actually going to do it, but you have to get the finger in there. I haven't actually done it yet, but I've seen other reviewers struggling with it, so I'm not going to bother. You all know what it looks like. He holds Megatron, and you know, that's about it really. So yeah, I do like the blast effects, but I do think it's a missed opportunity not having dual long blast effects, because you know that's what you would think of, or that's what I think of when I think of Starscream firing both of his weapons in the show. But still, yeah, as far as I go, again, like, I'm not a huge fan of blast effects, but these look okay. So yeah, not too bad. And if you just excuse me while I make a lot of noise in the background, I really should have taken these pieces out beforehand. Okay, apologies for that. I've got all the pieces I needed now. So yeah, he comes with a few things, yet more that one thing he did in that one episode type accompaniments. So I believe both of these are from the episode Cosmic Rust, when he pulled a piece of meteorite out of Megatron's chest. That is the piece of meteorite. I've seen other reviewers comparing it to something else, but really, that obviously goes with the claw, which only moves on one side. Again, I'll try and get that more in focus for you there. And the way you attach that is you open up the fist, or sorry, the arm compartment. I have to remember which way round these go. I don't want to break them, because I've seen some people complaining that they've had issues with breakages on the fists, and that's the last thing I want. I don't know if I've got that the right way around. I don't think I have. There you go. I'm not going to close it all the way up because I don't really want to, but anyway, it exposes this little nub here on the fist, and then you just attach that, and I don't know how well it will attach. Probably not great, because I'm trying to demonstrate it on camera, and things never work when you're actually trying to demonstrate them, do they? No, that doesn't really want to stay on there, but you get the idea. It goes on there, and he can hold the piece if he wants. He also has this little drill, and I don't think this came from the same episode. I can't quite remember what episode that was from. Again, that doesn't seem to want to go on there at the moment, and I'm not going to force it because it's not really worth my while. I'll probably never use any of these pieces. I tend not to. I display them, you know, pretty vanilla. But yeah, I guess, you know, it's a thing they can use to charge more, isn't it? Let me just open that up and flip the fist out again so that I can... I want to be really careful with these, because as I say, I'm pretty nervous about some of the breakages. These hinges here have been breaking on people's figures, and I'm really quite nervous about that, because that would really break my heart. Anyway, so yeah, he comes, obviously, you've seen in this video, he comes with a pretty standard, pretty generic stock expression. Which actually, the face sculpt's pretty good. I think the original one had a wider mouth across the face, and it looked a bit odd. But they've sort of, let's see if I can angle this up a bit so you can see better in the camera from that distance. It's yeah, it doesn't look too bad. It's not a bad looking face sculpt at all. But what we have are a decent range. of face sculpts actually that come with him. And again, another QC issue that I've seen is that people have been getting duplicates of face sculpts and things like that, so they've missed out on certain ones. But again, I seem to have been pretty lucky in the lottery this time. So here we have I guess a smiling face, which, you know, very Starscream-esque. Here we have a shocked, surprised face, or sorry, I'm probably covering that up too much, aren't I? Bit of an O face, really. But yeah, looks like he's just seen Megatron's going to kick his ass or something. Here we have what looks like a sort of broad, beaming, grinning face. I do like that one, actually. That is pretty cool. I like that. And then we have this one, which is rather another sort of dismayed look, less shocked, more dismayed. Not really a shouting face, I don't think, but yeah, I suppose it could be. But it looks good. My favourite, however, probably just because it just really suits the character, is the smirking face. And he does love to smirk, old Starscream, doesn't he? And I think that's the one that I'm ultimately going to go for with the head. I haven't looked at how to swap this yet, but I'm assuming it's just the same as most MPs these days. You just, yeah, you pull the face off like that, and then you put the desired face back on and pop it in and push it, and there you go. And that was fairly painless. And there we go. Old Screamer's now got his smirking face, and he looks pretty perfect now to me. Yeah, so all of those look really good. I like the face. One thing I do appreciate with figures are multiple facial expressions. I really do think that is an add-on that is warranted and does add value to the figure. Yeah, I don't know what else to say now, really. I guess I could just tell you how great it is all over again, but I'm not going to do that. What I will do, though, is I'll bring in the MakeToys version next to it, and then hopefully you can kind of see the differences. Let me see if I can bring this in. And yeah, I mean, again, like I said, don't get me wrong, I really like the MakeToys version. It's done me, it's done me really proud over the last however long I've had it, a few years. But yeah, I mean, compared to this, there's just no contest, is there? This beats it on pretty much every level. Aesthetically, it destroys it in terms of how accurate it is to the show and to the Marvel Comics, which is my particular favourite iteration of pretty much all the characters. And even in terms of like articulation, I mean, this has got arguably better waist articulation because it does have a crunch and a swivel, but the swivel kind of is a bit naff. It sort of breaks the sculpt when you do it. Not the swivel, sorry, the ab crunch. And obviously the wings are just that much bigger and ungainly, and they have a habit of popping out. You can angle them back though more, and they do angle up as well, so you get a bit more dynamism out of the wings. But yeah, just like this whole thing, the colour, even like the weapons, like the null rays, I used to think they were pretty good, and now I look at them next to the actual official Takara ones, and they don't look terrible, but they just don't look as good. And the feet, again, which I used to think were really super toon accurate compared to the older Takara molds, which I guess they were. Yeah, they just don't look as elegant, do they? And especially the legs are very chunky, and you have to fold up all of this stuff inside of the figure to hide it, and it still has this big butt flap as well. I take the nose cone off. They're still detachable. The C-clip comes off, so it gives it a slightly cleaner back. You can leave it attached, but I choose to take it off. And I've got the wing fillers on mine, as I said, from the Endgame figure. Don't think we'll ever get the rest of the cone heads, though, unfortunately. Yeah, again, it's very much Starscream. You can clearly see what it is, but it is just not anything like as good as this. And his head, this guy does have a peanut head, as you can see. That was one of the biggest, if not the biggest, complaints about this from most people. Never really bothered me that much, but I certainly agree that this is a step up. And that face is too dark. You can't even see that he's got smirk because it's too dark. But yeah, it's really, it's not disappointing because I've got my use out of it, and it will probably go into alt mode. but in which it looks great. So I'll have the best of both worlds, really. But yeah, you know, even these hands, like how bad the hands are on it, they're just, yeah, they're not great. But it's amazing how you don't realise or don't see a figure's faults until something better comes along, isn't it? You know, but I mean that's true of most things. But anyway, yeah, it's you know, you may disagree, but I feel that this is, you know, while a good figure, this is considerably better. And there is obviously another release coming from a company called Deformation Space, which I believe people are saying could be Transform Element under a different name, and they are doing what looks to be almost a hybrid between these two. So it's far closer in terms of looks than this. It is a unique mold though. It's not a rip-off. It's not a KO. It has much less of a backpack and the proper cartoon look at the back, but the proportions aren't as cartoony as this. So it's more like that in terms of more real world, so to speak, proportions. More. I don't know. Yeah, it just looks more like a person, whereas this looks like a superhero, if you see what I mean. Whereas, yeah. So I don't know. For that, I was going to get that before I got this, and yeah, I kind of still might get it because I just like to compare things. But as it stands, I'm gonna put this one into jet mode and move him away. I'm afraid his time has passed. Okay, so that's hopefully enough of the comparison. You can see the differences in bot mode as well now, and you know, as I say, whether you agree with me or not about which one's better, at least you can make your own opinion or form your own opinion based on this. So yeah, give me a second and I'll be right back with my final thoughts. Okay, so overall, what do I think? Well, as I mentioned briefly before, I honestly do think this is the best MP that I've bought from Takara in, well, as long as I can remember. I can't honestly think of another one that I've bought that pound for pound is as good as this. You know, I felt ripped off by MP-44 because of the breakage out of the box that I suffered, where the knees were dodgy before I'd even touched it. You know, for a 320, 330 pound figure or whatever it was I paid for it, that was inexcusable. And also it had other things like paint chipping, you know, and stuff like that. So I'm almost kind of scared to touch it to this day. Yeah, MP-45, I was QC issues with that. Nothing terrible, but still a few issues with mine. And yeah, MP-47, it really did feel like it was going to crack when I was transforming it. I'm actually sort of struggling to think of how far I'd have to go back to one that I was satisfied with for the money I paid. And I think probably the Plus version of Blue Streak, that stands out, and Wheeljack, that also stands out as being one that I thought was good. Prowl to a lesser extent, but probably Blue Streak overall. Even though that's an older mould, I really like the anime update for that, and the additional faces and blast effects were a nice touch as well. So yeah, this easily beats those though. I think this is the best. You know, I still think it's excessive, the price. I don't think this is worth £215. I could have had it for 200 if TFS, Express or Amiga Lock actually did a better job of advertising that it was available. It was when they switched over from orders from TFS to Amiga Lock for UK-based people, but for some reason had Starscream on TFS still, so I missed it, and that would have been less than 200. But I saw this come up the other day on Kapow. I had no intention of buying it. Hadn't pre-ordered, obviously, as I said. I was really looking at the Deformation Space one as my Starscream because I really liked the way that looked. And then people started to get it, and pictures were just really good, to be honest. And then I kind of thought, well, do you know what? I haven't bought anything really in the last year or so, a handful of figures. Why not? Like, you know, I work hard. I can buy this stuff if I want to. So I went from having only one, potentially two figures on order. I now have 9, and two of them include the plus molds, the plus models of this mold. So I've gone in on both Thundercracker and Skywarp, and I'm really looking forward to them actually. Thundercracker was one of my favourite G1 toys, and yeah, I think that They're slightly cheaper, I believe. They're like 180, 190, but still, these things are, the pricing and availability of these figures is only getting worse, and collectors are having it harder. And obviously there are factors at play here, in terms of, you know, COVID and over in the UK, Brexit has caused issues with the price we pay for imports and stuff. Thanks, Brexiteers. And yeah, there are reasons, but I still feel that they're potentially too expensive. And also I think that now third parties are seeing that people are willing to pay Takara prices, so their prices are creeping up. Like the latest round of Fans Toys pre-orders are way more. The Dinos pre-orders, they were like 180 figures when they came out, or maybe even less. They're like 220 now, and they sold out super quick. So yeah, it's the same with everything. It's just the way the hobby's going though. If you want to be in it, you've got to pay the price. But anyway, I digress as usual. Back to the figure. I do think it's really good. As I say, the cost aside, if you love Starscream, or if indeed you just like masterpiece scale Transformers, you really could do a lot worse than to pick this guy up. I can't wait to get the Seeker Trio together, and I'll put my MakeToys versions in jet mode and have them somewhere else. But it would just be really great to have like a proper Sunbow deco on all three of them, and they really will look great together. So yeah, I think as I said, I've been slightly out of love with the hobby for a while now, and it's thanks to a few encouraging comments from some members of various forums who visit my channel, who've reached out to me and been very kind and said some very nice things about the stuff I do, which surprised me because I didn't think anyone really watched it, to be honest. But obviously there are people out there who enjoy this content. As I say, I'm not professional. I do this as a hobby, and I do it mainly as a creative outlet. And I didn't realise how much I've been missing it until recently, and so I was kind of galvanised to create some more content, and that was part of the reason I bought this. And once I bought this, I was like, well, I might as well get the other two. And then I think I already had X-Transbots Virtus on order. Lord knows when we'll see that. But I had bought Fans Toys Rig as well. But then I bought Fans Toys Outrider. I've gone in on their Acoustic Wave with the cassette tapes package, add-on package, although that's coming out under Robot Paradise now, isn't it, for some random reason. And I think I may even have got another one or something that I've completely forgotten about. And I think there's going to be obviously the X-Transbots lock replacement program, so at some point I should have another one of those to compare and see if they have actually improved it as they promised. But I think that's what's holding up their Virtus. Actually, they're working on getting those done, so hopefully we'll see some movement on other stuff from them, and I can start bringing you guys some regular content. I think I'm pretty well booked from now up until the end of the year, and even into next year with Outrider. So yeah, hopefully you'll see sort of slightly more regular updates from me. Maybe not every month, but every couple of months, probably from now until the end of the year, going from the release schedule I've seen. So I really do appreciate the comments I've had from people privately, and I do appreciate anyone who views these videos, all of my subscribers. It's really great to engage with the community, and I really do appreciate all the positive feedback, and even the negative, because, you know, I like a bit of an argument sometimes. Who doesn't? So yeah, I hope you've found this informative. As I say, I'm a little rusty, so this isn't probably my finest video, and it's a bit disjointed because I had to record in 2 sessions due to childcare responsibilities. But yeah, I will be back, to quote the great man himself, and I hope you'll join me, and hopefully I've made some new fans along the way. Anyway, until next time. As always, thanks for watching and take care.